Welcome back, guys, to the Sweet Science Media with myself, Fat Mouse. What have we got here?
I'm Cash with a K and not a C.
Sensational. Guys, today we've got a very special guest coming on. He's joining us on Zoom. We have got former WKA world champion, Amer Abdallah, also manager and advisor to the champions. We're about to get him on now, so let's just see if we can find him. Welcome, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me on, buddy. It's a pleasure and honor to be on with you guys.
Thank you so much. How are you anyway? Before we sort of delve into some of the questions and some topics upcoming, what's life been like during the pandemic for you? What's the situation currently? How is everything going in Vegas?
Everything is good. I mean, Nevada, Las Vegas in specific, was one of the most hit cities and areas in the country. But overall, I think everything is making a turnaround. And, this pandemic, I think, showed us who we are on a society stage, and I think more so globally on a humanitarian stage of what we can endure and what we can get through and what we can overcome. So I'm optimistic to see that inshallah we're at the end of this tunnel and at the end of this pandemic. So looking forward to brighter days again. But alhamdulillah for everything.
Alhamdulillah. Always. It's good to have that perspective.
Is life in Vegas sort of back to normal? Are gyms open? Are you training? What's the situation like?
No, gyms are not open, at least not to the public. Most of the restaurants are at 25% capacity. But and the shows aren't going on. That's a big drawing point for Las Vegas. But the casinos are open. The strip is busy. I think Americans in general just got sick of being locked down, and they made a choice. They just want to go out and do what they want to do, and that's where we are now. The restaurants are capacity, and over the weekend it's difficult to find a reservation. Because they are at quarter occupancy. But life, is it's not nearly 100%, but it's back to at least the sociable guidelines and interactions. Gyms are not open.
That's the upsetting part. That's the unfortunate one. But for someone like yourself, you have private somewhere to train and somewhere to train the fighters, right?
Sure. All of our fighters, we're very fortunate to have a great relationship with a lot of local gyms. So
that's amazing.
So we have our facilities on site.
I was going to say as well, I wanted to mention is a lot of people don't realize, but for the fighters, obviously, it's difficult right now. What's happening? It's hard to make fights, hard to get fights. It's hard for people to sort of match up and travel and get their camp sorted. But what's it like from a manager's perspective? No one really looks at the promoters and the managers currently. Your head must be in about 1,000 different places at the moment because of what's going on.
Good question. You've got these guys, sitting idle, so it's really the manager and promoter's job to be able to use your resources, network connections, whatever it may be, to keep your guys active. So I have a kid that I just signed, a new pro, Bryce Mills. And fortunately enough for us, he was a Silver Gloves national champion. He just turned professional now. He's 3-0, inshallah, 4-0 next week. But we're finding local, regional shows that he can fight on. Though on a regional level, those shows are out there. Now, mind you, the difference is now you're buying a lot more slots than there are promoters actually paying you. It's more of a privilege to fight on the cards than it is to get paid to get on the cards. Now, on a bigger scale with guys like Badou Jack, alhamdulillah, we have great relationships with guys that are doing things like the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones fight and some other potential fights that are coming up also that Mayweather Promotions is rolling out. So at this point, it's a lot more being creative and really using your resources and the connections that you have in order to keep your guys busy. But look, there are guys that have been shelved for a year and a half that have not been doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we saw even over the weekend fighters who haven't been fighting for about a year and a half, and as a result, they've suffered losses because their performance has been compromised. So it's good to keep them busy, definitely. Ahmed, I wanted to ask how what made you want to transition from actually being a fighter at such a young age anyway, mashallah, into becoming a manager so quickly.
Actually, I'll even go back. When I first turned pro, October 20th of 2000, nearly 21 years ago, that was my only fight that I fought under a different promoter. So at that age, I think I was 23, 24 years old at that time, maybe 22 years old. I turned pro, and I fought, actually it was for a friend of mine. And I went through the training camp, I went through everything. If you remember old legendary fighter named Angel Manfredi.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And he he worked my corner. He's a close friend of mine, so he worked my corner for my pro fight. And after the fight, and I sold a ton of tickets. I had a great fan base there. And then after the fight, I was given $250 for my purse.
Good money.
I didn't know enough to negotiate my purse. I didn't know enough to have any bout agreements or anything like that, ticket commissions or anything like that. So I said, this does not make enough sense for me. At that age, I went and I took a little bit of time and I started studying the actual business of boxing, kickboxing. And I actually was the very first promoter to ever promote himself. And I'll tell you, I got such a backlash. I was in my early 20s, and everybody was saying is how it's such a conflict of interest, how a fighter shouldn't be able to manage himself, and how awful that was. Fast forward 20 years, every major fighter is doing it.
I was just
Now,
about
I
to say
never
that.
got the chance to make the money that they did, but my mind was always in that business kind of an angle. And so I've been promoting. I have a stable, and I was promoting and fighting at the same time. I'll tell you, brother, there was a few years where I was doing all the ticket sales, handling it myself. Before all of these big online ticket conglomerates came on, I was manually hustling tickets. I was seeking sponsorships and trying to get sponsorships. I was setting up the venue myself with my team, picking up the ring manually, loading it, unloading it, setting up chairs, labeling chairs, setting up the lights, and fighting on the card. That also includes doing all the matchmaking, doing all the bout agreements. I did it all. I did that for shows. And every single show, wallahi, I was like, man, I am never doing this this. But, I loved the challenge. I loved, all the adversity that came with it. And overcoming it was just such a euphoric, victorious feeling. So I did all of that. And I think that's what, if I can use the word successful, I think that's what makes me successful now is I've touched every part of this game. Mind you, I was still running my gym, training fighters, putting my own fighters on the card. So I've been a manager. I've been a coach. I've been a gym owner. I've been a manager. I've been a promoter. I've been an advisor, a fighter. So when I'm negotiating on any one of those behalves, I know what the other side is thinking because I've touched every part of this game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
And that's why I feel like a lot of fighters nowadays, especially this generation of fighters, are beginning to sort of come out of that shell of just being focused on fighting. Because the mindset before was, I'm just going to fight, I'm going to jump in there and fight whoever, collect my money, and I'm going to go home. And it's on to the next. Whereas there was a few select who had a business acumen behind it and thought about the bigger picture.
Exactly. Well, my slogan in this whole thing is, this is a business disguised as a sport. That's just, and it really is. And when you look at the guy that really raised the bar, Floyd Mayweather, he exposed that more than anything. Mind you, he also hurt the sport so much by that. Now every fighter thinks they're entitled to Floyd kind of money. But what nobody knows is the struggles that Floyd went through to get to that point. But Floyd was such an out-of-the-box, athlete and entertainer. And towards the end of his career, when he started, having the kinds of hands injuries that he did, and he started talking a lot more, when he couldn't really put guys out, but it was just his boxing skill. And for the average fan, that's not really entertaining. You saw the backlash from the Manny Pacquiao fight. People thought it was going to be this, Hagler-Hearns fight, and it was a clinic. So Floyd started doing the trash talking, and it attracted so many people to that. It just put a whole different set of eyes on it. And then as you move forward, now with the age of social media, we just did the Tyson Jones fight. And I was saying, imagine if social media was around in Mike Tyson's fight. Imagine what that would have done. But the answer to that is look what it did for the Jones fight. The 8th highest pay-per-view fight in the history of fights. And that's all due to Mike Tyson, who he is. So there is a lot more. And I always tell all the fighters that I work with, you have a responsibility to brand yourself. You have a responsibility, to have an active social media. I swear to you, the opportunities that I get from sponsors, I get more for my guys that have more of a social media and less of a boxing pedigree than I do for my established world champions that have a smaller social media. The first thing that these enterprises look for and these companies look for is what kind of social media following does he have. Forget about what kind of social media. He's a 2-division world champion.
Nowadays it doesn't matter now. Yeah, it's true. And this is why I was going to touch on it, is because you've seen the highs and the lows now. So you've seen what life is like now for a fighter. But then you're also involved in the Tyson Jones. You're also involved with KSI, Vidal, Riley, these YouTube guys with huge social media platforms who've managed to break through to like the likes of DAZN and be on Sky Sports in the UK, be on pay-per-view. And then they got huge backlash for that. What are your thoughts on the YouTube boxing scene and guys like KSI and Jake Paul, who's got a fight with Ben Askren coming up, and what they could do for the boxing scene?
In 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when people are going to barely remember this, glimmer of a fight that happened, the hatred, the animosity, the backlash, that'll all be gone. But what won't be gone? The bank account. So what really matters for you to put food on the table for your family, build your empire, start investing, give your family a better lifestyle and go through that adversity now, or no, the yeses and the okays and the cheers, eat that now, and then 15 years down the road, like, damn, I don't have a pot to piss in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many world champions that I've come in contact with, that I work with, that would be shocking to see what their value is now after being in the limelight for so long, because they never grasped that financial picture and that opportunity of that revenue stream at that time. Look, a fighter's shelf life is very short. The life that they make money is very short. And there was one world champion that I was talking to, and he said, and I'll never forget, this is one of the things that's always been planted in my mind. He said, if I knew the money train was going to end when it did, I would have done things totally different. Mm-hmm. You're one fight away, you're one shot away, you're one loss away from it all ending. So go make your money. I'm okay with it. And then mind you, do I think that they should be taking the thunder from real fighters? No. But I'm not hating on them. I commend them. Go make your money. Look, they put in their time in the YouTube world. KSI did 10, 12 years before he built the platform that he was. So he did put effort into something else. He's just maximizing it somewhere else. Exactly. If I were to tell you, listen, I'm going to go pay you $1 million or $2 million to go play badminton because of your foul.
Let's go.
I think every single one of us would be picking up a racket and going over there.
100%.
Yeah, let them make their money, and I think it's great for the sport. And I think bringing over that YouTube, social media community is huge. Mm-hmm. And mind you, it brings a ton of sponsorship over too.
Absolutely.
Did so you mentioned obviously the king of or the guy who brought this all to fruition, the promoting himself and selling himself and making the money, Mayweather, for example, Floyd. Being in and around the Mayweathers in camp and seeing them up in person and having discussions, how has that affected your side of promotion and your side of managing fighters? How has that helped you?
Floyd is larger than life, and whether you like him, dislike him, abide by his personal life or whatever it may be, you can't take away from the fact that what he did professionally and what he did in the ring, arguably will never be done again, and has never been done. He raised the bar financially, he raised the bar entertainment-wise, he raised the bar attraction-wise. Nobody will ever make the kind of gate, and tickets sold, that Floyd Mayweather will make. Nobody will ever match the pay-per-view numbers that Floyd was able to attract. Nobody will ever bring the sponsorship revenue that Floyd was able to be a part of. And I had the fortune of being involved with quite a few Floyd Mayweather fights. The aura of a Mayweather fight. When Floyd Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao, they shut down the private airport that's here because the private planes were lined up side by side by side because of how many celebrities and A-list people flew in. Las Vegas did $1 billion of revenue outside of the fight itself that weekend because that fight was taking place. That's the king when it comes to boxing. He's done things that nobody else has done. And I looked the other day and I was looking at, just out of curiosity, I was wondering, my wife asked me, how much does Tom Brady make? And I looked at his salary and it was, a 10-year deal for like $280 million. And I said, what Tom Brady did in 10 years, Floyd did in 36 minutes.
Exactly.
Crazy.
There's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot to be said about that. So going back to your question is, what is it like to be around that, man? How does that not level you up? Mm-hmm. And Floyd is just, and mind you, this is a guy with a 7th grade education. This is not a college degree. This is not a master's degree. This is not a doctor. This is a guy that built it based on the belief of himself and his skills. Yeah. And you got to give him credit for it.
I was reading, and I showed Mouse earlier today, a statistic saying, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but to me it sounds like it. He's only one of 5 athletes to make $1 billion. Over $1 billion, I think it is.
Yeah.
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
In 2 fights by themselves, he was over $500 million. He's done a phenomenal. I mean, think about this. For 10 years straight, he was the highest paid athlete, not fighter, athlete in the world.
Yeah.
Athlete. More than Messi, more than
Ronaldo,
LeBron, more than all of those guys.
Yeah. It's actually crazy. It's scary, the scope of this thing. People don't realize that boxing itself as a sport, like you said, a business disguised as a sport, is larger than life. And you get characters and you get athletes and you get fighters.
Let me add this to my point. All those other fighters, that included their endorsements. Floyd's endorsements, 0. He never allowed anybody to endorse him for his career until late, when he started bringing on Hugh Lowe.
Yeah.
When it became worth it for him.
0 endorsement. Those other guys, their endorsements supersede their contract.
Yeah. You said he stopped at 7th grade, and you just can't teach genius. That's why. It's not something you get taught. He's got a gift, and it's not just in his boxing. It's absolutely phenomenal.
So many things that he does.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, we could talk about Mayweather all day, and unfortunately we won't get bored. But I wanted to put a focus on one of my favorite boxers who he's associated with you, and that's Badou Jack. From way before this started, way before anything up, I was watching him coming up, and I was really impressed with this guy he's from all over the place, Swedish, gone to America, originally, I forget. There we go, thank you, originally Gambian. And I was just like, it's amazing. You see the guy and he looks smooth. He said, he's like a clean cut guy, but then in the ring, clinical killer. His previous fights where he's suffered crazy injuries and he's just carried on. How did that friendship, if you like, come to fruition in the first place?
It was during the time when I was still training. I was training at Floyd's gym here in Nevada. I was still active during that time, and Badou was still active. Well, he is active. Yeah. He was getting ready for a fight. So we would cross paths in the gym. And I had learned that he was a Muslim fighter. So I was a big fan of Badou's because he was a Muslim.
Same.
I was listening.
I think we used to always give each other salam and whatnot. And then he would ask some religious questions and whatnot. We started talking and whatnot. And one thing led to another. And then we became good friends first. And after a little while, he asked, he said, would you be open to joining the team? And I said, of course. If I can bring value to it. And I did, and he was very happy with everything. And alhamdulillah, we are where we are now. And, we just really partnered up in 2017, so just 3-4 years ago that we got together. But we built, I think, a great foundation and a great, no pun intended, but it does have a foundation.
There we go. Literally wanted to move on to that. Who's
a lot of great things going.
Absolutely. I don't want to ask whose idea it was because it's not about taking credit, but it's how did it come about? The Badou Jack Foundation, for those who don't know, it's in fact, it's better coming from you. Tell us about the Badou Jack Foundation.
Badou was always doing things, with the Gambia. He was giving back, to small communities and whatnot. He was doing a lot of philanthropic things, but he was doing it very quietly. So I came in with my big mouth and I said, listen, here's what you need to do. If you really want to help people and you want to do it on a global scale, then you need to start a foundation. And mind you, even for people to be able to make donations and whatnot, it's a lot easier from a tax perspective and just from an enterprise, standing and how you can help solicit more sponsor or donations. So if you can if you're giving these guys, let's just say, $100, now you can give them $2,000 because of how many more people are going to be attracted to what you do. And he goes, if this is what's going to help you, because I just don't want to be in the limelight giving people and cameras on me and whatnot. Badou was one of the most humble, down-to-earth people that I've ever met in my life. And he makes me shy because of how humble he is. So we started the Badou Jack Foundation, and now he's working, with, of course, the people in Gambia. He's now helping build orphanages, freshwater wells. He's working with the refugees in Syria, Palestine. Helped re-equip one of their medical facilities. Again, more orphanage there. He's got the Badou Jack Education Center. So he's doing a lot of great things, and now we're shifting our focus to the pandemic. We weren't really able to have access over there as much as we wanted to.
Yeah.
He's helping him use foster children in the United States as well.
Amazing.
What we'll do is we'll
Race, religion, creed. He's helping everybody and anybody because he feels that's his obligation as a champion.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say what we'll do is we'll put a link down in our description as well. We'll put a link up on the screen as well, so people can obviously help out because it's fascinating that when you've got someone in that kind of position who earns a good amount of money, that it's a good thing and it's always to give back.
Giving back is relative. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that even his last fight, that purse wasn't where Badou usually is getting paid. The caliber of opponent isn't the caliber of opponent. Badou's fought 8 world champions back to back. And he said, I'm going to do this. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier was, the connections that we had, we were able to keep Badou busy. We were able to keep him, active during a pandemic when very few people were active.
Yeah.
And he said, what I'd like to do is, donate the proceeds to this fight to my foundation.
That's unbelievable.
I wanted to say that fight was entertaining though.
It was.
Blake is a tough man. He took shots and he was eating them coming forward.
We knew he was going to be a tough kid. He was going to be durable, and look, Badou of course won every single round. He was shut out, and it was good. To have him get a little bit of a glorified sparring session. But it was fun. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's criminal. We're big fans of Badou. I think it's criminal that the fact that he is so good and so underrated,
Absolutely.
so late in his career as well. He's done it all. He's fought the best of the best. We're from the UK. He's fought James DeGale. He fought George Groves. He arguably beat DeGale. He could have gone either way in that fight. Cleverly came in and stopped Cleverly in 5 rounds. He's been in there. Pascal. He's been in there with some of the best in the division, up and down, and he's won it in both, in 2 weight divisions. I find it quite crazy the fact that
there's a lot of politics, and I think I know where you're going with this. And I'll say it because I think you're too respectful of the person to say it. I'll tell you, Badou's been screwed by the powers that be, and for whatever reason, I don't buy. And I had this conversation with the promoter. I don't buy the fact that it's just bad fate 5 times in a row. I don't. Now, could Badou start a little bit sooner? Sure, he could. And you'll see him start a lot faster in the fight in this next fight show. But more importantly, he won the fight. Like the DeGale fight, he won the fight. The Stevenson fight, he won the fight. The what's his name? The Pascal fight, he won the fight. You talk about 76% of the people or 74% of the people that were watching said Badou won the fight. After the fight, look in the ring. Pascal's corner, they all have their heads down like they just lost the time, but we're all celebrating before the decision's even rendered.
Yeah.
And imagine this. Imagine if Badou Jack was a 5-time or 6-time world champion, what that would have done for his family financially.
Crazy.
The politics in the sport cost the man a livelihood. And Badou doesn't shy away from it. But you alluded to earlier, 132 stitches, had 3 layers of stitches, and the guy kept fighting. He refused to stop.
Unbelievable fight as well. Yeah, unbelievable heart.
This is the most underrated fighter in boxing today.
Agreed.
And it's a shame.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Big shame. You mentioned that he might be fighting against him. I take it there's something planned, is there?
Yeah, I mean, nothing is finalized yet, but we're hoping to get the Pascal rematch done sooner than later.
Okay, brilliant.
Everybody's on board. We're just waiting for the right venue and the right location, the right dates. We're just waiting. Mayweather Promotions will give us the go ahead and the green light once they have everything done.
Amazing.
And we're ready to go.
I know it's a bit early now to sort of talk about where it could be staged. Are we looking Canada? Are we looking US?
Bring it to Wembley.
I don't think it would be Canada. I think there's a lot of problems across the board. I can't imagine it being anywhere but the United States.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring it over to us. We'll host the O2.
I would love to do a fight in the UK. I think the plan was also to have Vidal make a big homecoming in the UK.
Oh, wow.
What are the plans with Vidal anyway at the moment?
I'm sorry?
What are the plans with Vidal at the moment?
So right now, he's rehabilitating the injury that he suffered, for the Jones fight. He really wanted to push through that fight, but I'm telling you, the kid would have been at 25-30%. There's no way I'm going to put a fighter in there like that. Again, when you go through camp, again, because I know what it's like to go through camp. I'm not a manager and a promoter sitting from behind a desk and making that call. I've been there. I know what it's like. And a fighter will be the last person to say I'm done. But having said that, going through training camp, you do suffer and you do get injured. And if you can come into the fight at 90%, 95%, then you're way ahead of most people because of the how much pain and injury and just how tedious the training camp is. But Vidal, with that injury, it would have crippled him. I mean, he was at best case scenario 30%. There's zero chance at it.
Of course, no one would want to miss out on a Mike Tyson pay-per-view. To be on that, it has to be something serious for you to be like, no, you know what, I can't do it. You have to pull from the card.
I can't tell you how difficult of a decision it was. That had to have been one of my top 2 or 3 most difficult calls I had to make.
Wow.
I can imagine, because it's heartbreaking. Imagine growing up, someone being an icon, someone you look up to for so long, and then having the opportunity. Vidal probably never ever imagined it in his life. That he'd probably get the opportunity to be on the Tyson card.
I told his father, they were like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Look at, they gave Tyson 2 slots, and he gave them to me. You put Badou on one, Vidal on the other one. This is not a small opportunity, and I'm, tremendously grateful for Mike and his team for trusting us with that." And I felt awful that we couldn't get that slot filled, and how many people were paid to be on that slot.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope there's bigger opportunities, better opportunities for him in the future.
Yeah, God, some other
Silver lining.
his health was the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And had he gone out there and got injured, and maybe worse, even long-term injury or lost, nobody would have been forgiven about that. Right?
Exactly.
Without the bump, the overrated,
Yes.
the YouTube guy. So you have to take that into consideration.
Just quickly, Amer, before we sort of depart, you're good friends with someone who fought a few weeks ago, made his return, Caleb Plant, and there's a few sort of talks around, surrounding Canelo and a super fight, and someone, actually giving him a problem. And I've watched Plant for a very, very long time, and I used to say to Mouse, this guy's boxing IQ, the way he moves in the ring, he's so smart. He'll give a lot of these guys a lot of problems. And I see a lot. I mean, recently anyway, I've seen some comments saying that this guy doesn't stand a chance against Canelo. He doesn't hit not hard enough. What are your thoughts on it anyway? Being quite close to the guy, how do you see him doing in that fight? And sort of, from discussions of what you've seen.
Well, before I answer that question, let me go back. Caleb Plant, when I first met him, again, I was training and we were in the gym together, and he told me about his daughter, Aliyah.
Yeah.
My daughter's name is Ali.
Yeah.
They were both, at that time, my daughter was 2 years old. He told me how his daughter passed away when she was 2 years old. As he's talking to me, uncontrollably, I started crying. I started tearing up because I put myself in this position. And I told him, I said, I will stop at nothing to help you along the way into whatever I have to do to help you get to what you want to do. Because you understand, I've already died. When my daughter died, I already died. This is all I've got left.
Yeah.
And at that point, I knew this kid was going to be destined to be the absolute best, or he'd be carried away in a body bag. So Caleb Plant 1 is the most marketable fighter in boxing, in my opinion, because not only can he box a lot savvier than most people we see, but he can talk better than 99% of people we see. And the fact is, he's a white boy. So that all of those things coupled together, and he's with the most powerful manager in the world, Al Heyman, or the advisor in the world. Those are all coupled for a huge recipe for success. So one is his commitment to the fight game is unparalleled. Caleb is an absolute, genuinely great man, but very few people can see that because he's so obsessed with one thing, and that's his boxing. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
There's very little outside of Caleb Plant other than boxing, so he's all in this. As far as the Canelo fight, Canelo's people were I don't want to say smart, but they were witty enough to, after his last fight in Nashville, not this one year, one before that, in Nashville, and literally as he's coming down the stairs off the ring, they told him, get ready in 9 weeks. We'll have a fight. They're trying to do to Caleb what Floyd did to Canelo, and catch him early enough where Canelo's experience could supersede Caleb's. But because Caleb has a great team around him, that didn't happen. Do I think a fight will happen? Absolutely. Do I think Caleb beats Canelo convincingly without 100% one ounce of doubt in my mind that is the most objective, unsubjective, unemotional decision that I can make. Is I think Caleb's IQ, even at this stage, can beat Canelo, and you heard it from me here that he will beat Canelo convincingly.
Wow.
We've got that. That's going to be. We've got that. That's the caption.
I'm not a betting man, but if I were to be one, I'd have to. I'd go with those words there, man.
But this is what I wanted to say.
The kid is just built different.
I was going to say the amount of adversity he's already come through.
Absolutely.
Your mindset.
Caleb is the kind of guy that if anybody doesn't know him, you don't understand him, because as long as Caleb is convinced of something, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Yeah, I'll give you a case in point. His wife, Jordan, who's a great Fox commentator, by the way, when they were dating, they were about to get married, they sent me an invitation for the wedding. And I looked at my calendar, and it was still a month or two out, and I had an event that I had planned that weekend. So I respectfully, I waited to see if I could move my date, shift my dates. It was a big event that we were holding out in Rhode Island. It was one of our bigger events. So I told him, I said, respectfully, I said, listen, guys, I'm sorry, I can't make the wedding. But anything you need from me, let me know. And they're like, okay, sorry, we couldn't make it, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you this. A month or maybe 3 weeks before the wedding, Jordan calls me and she's like, Caleb wants to know if we can hop on a call. I go, man, you don't have to ask. And he's like, okay, he's ready to do it. I go, oh, okay, so he set you up for this. I go, champ, what do you need? Mind you, this is before everything. And he goes, yeah, I know that you said that you have, an event out in Rhode Island. I just need you to do me a favor for the wedding. I mean, whatever you need. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking he wants me to get the cake ready. He wants me to order limo, arrangements. And he goes, I need you to marry us.
Wow.
And I said, yeah.
I've seen it. I saw it on your Instagram.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, what I'm telling you is, I don't understand that. That's why I can't make it. He goes, yeah. No, I know. I just need you to marry us. I can't be there to marry you. I have an event that's going to make me money, and I have my fighters. He goes, yeah, I know. I just need you to marry me. So I knew what he was saying, and he's this hard-headed that he's not going to understand what I'm saying. I go, champ, it would be my honor to marry you. And I ended up, I had somebody, fill my place. I had one of my event coordinators, coordinators to cover the thing, and I went to Tennessee and I married Jordan and Caleb.
Yeah.
But that's just the mentality the guy has. Because when he has something in his head, he's just going to get it, regardless of what the other circumstances are.
Yeah.
So, and mind you, that was one of the biggest honors of my life, to be able to be there for that.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. You posted a picture on your Instagram, I think, when it happened.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
And it was a beautiful reception. It was just amazing to be a part of that. And but again, going back to alluding to Caleb, is when he has something in his mind, it doesn't matter what's in front. So Canelo, believe me, the man has buried his daughter and his mother. There's not much that Canelo is going to pose in terms of adversity.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. I was going to say he's been doubted all along anyway, from the start. When he fought his Kata guy, everyone was like, nah, it's not going to happen.
The Caleb Plant story in itself, and I know there's a documentary that they're working on, is phenomenal. The guy has literally overcome every odd you could possibly say. In boxing, in life, growing up very, very poor. I remember telling me that he was going through garbage cans to help feed him and his sister. Just an absolutely amazing story. And I'll tell you, that kind of stuff reminisces with him all the way through. So he wasn't built based off of praise. He wasn't built based off of being this hype. He was built off of his commitment, his hard work, his adversity. How do you take that away from the guy? So you can talk all the crap you want about the guy. He wasn't built off of it anyway. Why does it even affect him?
Yeah.
It's built on what you're doing is actually fueling him for what he's gone through anyway. I remember we went to dinner. This was before he was champion. This was before the money came. This was before all of that. And we had gone to dinner, and I know that Caleb didn't have at that time a lot of money. So he was those guys who used to take the to-go plates so that he could have lunch for the next day. And as we were leaving, he saw a woman at the traffic light, and she was sitting there, begging. And he goes, "I just got to do this." And he gets out of the car, and he goes over to her and he gives her his food, and he goes, "I want you to have a nice warm meal. Just got this." And he does that because he knows what that person's like, because he was that person.
Mm.
So, man, it's turned into the Caleb show now. Caleb Plant show. But having said all of that, Caleb whoops Canelo. It's very.
I'm excited for the fight when it does happen. I'm very excited for it.
It will be massive, and I hope it happens this year. And if not, it can happen next year. But I know that they're targeting him to bring him in early, but that's going to be a big mistake. And I'm telling you, this kid is on a different level.
Yes, good,
Amazing.
good. Looking forward to that, man. Inshallah, all the best. Ahmed, once again, thank you so much. I know you need to get back to the family. We can hear Ali in the background, but we appreciate that. Hopefully, we can do this again sometime. But in the meantime, look after yourself and the family.
I support everything you guys are doing. You have a great channel, and I hope that you guys take off and skyrocket and are very successful.
Thank you very much.
Just before you leave, let the people know where they can follow you, be in touch if they've got any, if they want to sort of keep up to date with the latest things with all Badou and yourself.
On Instagram, my handle is @Team Abdallah, and Facebook is just my name, Amer Abdallah.
Perfect.
I'm not really a big Twitter guy, but
Keep
after Trump left it, I think I'm gonna hop on.
All right, man.
Cool.
Thanks again, man.
We'll
Thank
put
you
it
so
up.
much.
And we'll be in touch again very soon.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Take
Look
care,
after
so
yourself. Bye-bye.
Take care, Joe.